Surveying the scorched aftermath of his failed experiment, Razel calmly measured the limits of his mana. Miles away from his allies, he activated flight magic and soared toward the nearest settlement. A violent shockwave tore across the air nearby, freezing him in mid-flight. The earth cracked open beneath him, revealing a pitch-black spatial rift pulsing with raw instability. With his own mana holding steady, he recognized the breach as an outside force warping reality. Sensing the tier expand at a critical rate, Razel raised his guard against the brewing collapse. An invisible grip clamped onto his arm, dragging him toward the dark rift. Out of the swirling chaos emerged a radiant woman, completely unfazed by the vortex around her. Introducing herself as Risha, the goddess of summoning, she gazed down at him with divine poise. Doubt gripped Razel as he processed her otherworldly claim. Risha laid out her mission plainly. She needed humanity's greatest champion to save another realm. Though skeptical at first, her pinpoint grasp of his true power forced him to take her offer seriously. Knowing no other mortal surpassed his magical intellect, he accepted the title of mankind's strongest. A radiant smile lit up Risha the moment he agreed to join her crusade. Bound for an alien throne room, Razel braced himself to confront the dreaded demon lord. Gravitational currents dragged him deeper into the gateway as he primed his defenses for the leap. Shattered light and fractured space swirled around him as the vortex pulled his body through reality. Crossing the dimensional gap without resistance, he materialized inside a cathedral packed with nobles and towering statues. Before the Grand Royal Court, Razel received a formal greeting from King Raji upon the throne. A quick scan of the other summoned heroes revealed their mana reserves were remarkably shallow. Multiple earthlings stood in the chamber, but none possessed the strength required for a world-ending war. A court attendant took the floor, detailing the geopolitical makeup of the continent as Razel tracked every word. Power across the realm hung in a fragile deadlock between three dominant races: humans, demons, and demi-humans. From the court's frantic briefing, Razel deduced that surging demon armies were driving humanity toward extinction. Presentations echoed across the hall as the ministers unveiled the brutal advance of the enemy vanguard. Desperate officials begged for their aid, promising mountains of gold and glory for slaying the demon lord. Unlike the excited newcomers cheering for glory, Razel stayed silent, weighing the kingdom's true motives. To gauge their combat readiness, mages rolled out an appraisal orb pulsing with evaluation magic. Stepping up with total confidence, the first hero volunteered to test his battle prowess. His palm pressed against the glass, unleashing a blinding burst of radiant energy across the floor. Cheers erupted throughout the hall as the crystal registered an astounding combat power of 4097. The next hero stepped forward proudly, though Razel doubted that raw numbers could ever measure true mastery. Consecutive high scores lit up the orb, sending the court's admiration soaring with every new reading. With excitement reaching its peak, the examiners called up the final candidate, Razel. Razel rested his palm on the surface under the watchful, breathless gaze of the entire royal court. The orb remained pitch black, baffling the mages and stirring frantic murmurs about a device failure. Suspecting a glitch, the chief examiner demanded a retest, and Razel calmly reapplied his touch. The glass finally flickered with faint light, locking the grand hall in dead silence. A flat 0 flashed across the core, leaving everyone stunned as Razel questioned the accuracy of the orb. King Raji flew into a rage, branding him a worthless fake and ordering his immediate banishment. Razel countered that the orb failed to register his advanced spellcraft, but his protests fell on deaf ears. To prove his mastery, he cast high-tier alchemy, compressing a scrap of coal into a flawless diamond. Gasps echoed through the room as the impossible transmutative spell revealed his supreme caliber. Stunned ministers froze, recognizing that his technique completely shattered the known laws of magic. Refusing to admit error, the king dismissed the miracle as cheap trickery and ordered his guards to drag him out. Derisive laughter rang from the other heroes, and even Risha averted her eyes in hesitation. Armored guards shoved him out the royal gates, tossing the transformed diamond back at his feet. Out in the bustling capital streets, curious commoners stared as he passed in silence. Alone beside a stone fountain, he plotted his next move in an unfamiliar world. Banished and betrayed, Razel steeled his resolve to forge his own path forward. Survival meant taking stock of every card in his hand hand before making another move. Stepping inside a local workshop, Razel set a flawless diamond on the counter, instantly hooking the appraiser's eyes. Suspicion flared across the merchant's face, yet Razel bluntly admitted the gem was synthesized through magic. The man's stunned reaction confirmed this primitive realm had never witnessed synthetic alchemy before. Quick coin was essential, but broadcasting his manufacturing methods would only draw dangerous greed. Offering a massive discount, he pushed for an instant sale to secure travel funds without questions. Panic seized the merchant, terrified that handling an impossible treasure would summon royal enforcers. Razel diffused the tension with an easy compromise, requesting a modest advance instead of a full buyout. Relieved by the painless terms, the shopkeeper counted out the gold and sealed the deal with a handshake. Pocketing the pouch of coins, Razel slipped back into the streets. Fully aware exile left zero room for error. Beyond the town gates, he paused to survey the horizon, bracing himself for the uncharted wilderness. Finding a secluded alleyway, he rented a quiet room at Marie's Inn to recover from the chaotic crossing. Analyzing the surrounding mana revealed massive discrepancies between local spellcraft and his modern theories. Unmistakable proof washed over Razel, driving home the reality of his otherworldly summon. Testing basic artifacts confirmed that entirely foreign laws of physics governed this realm. Cast out by mankind as their hero, he resolved to seek out the demon lord directly. Ancient archives proved the demon race was no pack of beasts, but an organized civilization. Left without allies or provisions, opening a diplomatic channel with the demon sovereign was his sharpest move. Razel engaged his dimensional storage from the edge of the bed, verifying his original abilities remained intact. Floating into the air, Archon deployed its optical array to scan the surrounding geography. Confident in his spells, he closed his eyes as the probe plotted a stealth corridor toward Demon Palace. Dawn arrived with a completed 3D scan, detailing every cliff, canyon, and patrol route in the area. A sharp disturbance in the mana field snapped him awake, prompting him to stash his gear and track the anomaly. Cloaked hostiles surrounded the perimeter, bouncing detection spells off the walls to lock onto his room. Peering through the dark, the squad confirmed Razel matched the exact bounty profile of the banished hero. Fully aware King Raji had sent assassins, he casually slipped out the door into the misty night. Down in the narrow alleyway, he strolled alone under the watchful gaze of rooftop snipers. Razel tracked their murderous intent, intentionally leaving an opening to bait their attack. Leaping from the overhangs, the killers unleashed a volley of venom-coated needles straight at his spine. The needles struck true, but his passive barrier cleansed the lethal toxin on contact. Smirking at their easy kill, the squad dropped to the ground, blind to his unscathed stance. Swiveling on his heel, Razel discharged high-voltage lightning in a blinding radial burst. Raw electrical arcs tore through the hit squad, dropping every assassin paralyzed in an instant. Clearing the alley, he summoned a biocapsule from his vault to manufacture an organic double. Cellular magic ignited within the device, weaving bone and muscle into a duplicate corpse. The fabricated dummy slumped across the pavement, perfectly staging his apparent death to mislead the crown. Razel vanished into the shadows, setting his sights solely on the demon sovereign's territory. Shaking off the electric shock, surviving scouts found the body motionless in the mud. Seeing the pale skin, they concluded the poison had finally killed Razel and lowered their weapons. An assassin drove a dagger into the chest, completely fooled by the artificial flesh. Satisfied with their handiwork, the squad readied their blades to take the head as proof of bounty. Before steel touched skin, the decoy dissolved into shimmering particles and vanished into thin air. Far across the frontier, an ominous fortress loomed over the misty peaks beneath a full moon. Standing before titanic gates, Razel looked up at the stronghold marking the seat of the demon realm. Demonic sentries caught his approach, crossing their heavy halberds to block the archway. Unshaken by the hostile steel, he held his ground without flinching. Requesting a direct audience with the demon sovereign, he found barbed chains instantly locking his wrists. Keeping his voice calm, he apologized for arriving unannounced to de-escalate their defensive fury. Hostility flared among the guards, sneering at his human summon aura and refusing to let an enemy enter. traitor. Razel calmly dropped the truth that King Raji had exiled him, freezing the guards in total disbelief. Laying out the assassination attempt orchestrated by his own kingdom, Razel forces the demon guards to hesitate. One guard lunges with drawn steel, convinced this is just another deceptive trick from a summoned hero. Sidestepping without flinching, Razel calmly reads the guard's stance and identifies their battle formation. The demon guards boast of the impenetrable anti-teleportation barrier anchored in the high spire. Infuriated by his unimpressed scoff, the defenders shout that no mortal spell can pierce their wards. Razel merely smirks, having baited them into giving away the barrier's exact coordinates. A sneering sentry dares him to try, certain the castle's airspace remains completely locked down. With relaxed hands, he points out that such primitive wards cannot stop true spatial magic. Before their eyes, his silhouette breaks down into glowing, shimmering streams of mana. Intricate geometric rings ignite beneath his feet, rewriting spatial coordinates past the barrier grid. A sharp flash collapses into thin air, leaving the guards gaping at empty stone. Spatial warp magic carries Razel across the night sky, bypassing every ward straight into Demon Palace. Materializing inside an ornate private chamber, he realizes he has landed in the inner sanctum of Mercia. Reclining upon the grand throne, Mercia snaps her head up in shock at the intruder before her. Leaping to her feet, Mercia locks her gaze on Razel and instantly gauges his overwhelming mana. Shock grips her as she wonders how he pierced the barrier, but Razel smoothly addresses the demon ruler. Bowing with formal elegance, Razel offers a polite apology for dropping in unannounced. Mercia grimly acknowledges the genius required to slip through a barrier untouched for centuries. Taking in his relaxed posture, she studies every breath of Razel to discern his true purpose. Speaking evenly, Razel introduces himself as an exiled hero searching for the unfiltered truth of this world. An imposing aura surrounds Mercia as she listens in silence, evaluating every word he speaks. Fury flares across her face as she unleashes a crushing storm of magic to trap him on the spot. Facing the blazing tempest, Razel admits that dropping into a ruler's sanctum was bound to cause friction. Dense waves of raw energy collide, rattling the stone pillars of the throne room. Holding firm against the onslaught from Mercia, Razel recalls how easily the humans betrayed him after his exile. Seeing him stand unharmed, Mercia reigns in her wrath, recognizing an absolute powerhouse before her. Royal guards and an attendant burst in to strike him, yet solid magic from Razel deflects every blow effortlessly. The rebounding shockwave sweeps across the chamber, knocking the guards back as the dust settles. Encased in his glowing barrier, Razel neutralizes their strikes without inflicting a single lethal injury. Disbelief washes over the elite guards as they stare at their useless blades in total confusion. Struggling to their feet, the soldiers realize Razel deliberately spared them from lethal harm. Witnessing his mercy, Mercia and her attendants begin to question why this human refused to kill. Frustration tugs at Mercia as she tries to grasp how he walked away from lethal magic without a scratch. When her guards raise their blades again, Mercia waves them down, knowing Razel outclasses them all. As the hostility clears, Mercia steps forward to hear out the questions Razel brought to her court. Offering an official audience, she grants a temporary truce between demon royalty and the outcast. Though suspicion lingers behind her eyes, Mercia maintains her royal composure to evaluate his motives. Recognizing his potential as an invaluable ally, Mercia chooses dialogue over pointless bloodshed. Turning to her retainers, she commands them to wait outside and leave the guest to her alone. The guards bow and withdraw from the hall, sealing the heavy doors to leave them in private. Retaking her seat upon the throne, Mercia gestures for Razel to lay out his questions. Razel gets straight to the point, asking what truly fuels the endless war between humans and demons. Handing over an ancient parchment, Mercia watches as Razel inspects the heavy magical seals binding it. Unrolling the parchment, he recognizes a treaty backed by King Raji under soul-binding vows. Reading line by line, Razel is stunned by the one-sided terms shackling demons to protect humans. Mercia explains the bloody origin of the pact, signed after a summoned hero slaughtered the previous demon king. Breaking the treaty would instantly trigger the goddess Risha to summon a new hero to claim her life. Pondering this vicious cycle, Razel questions why the goddess Risha keeps summoning fresh souls from other worlds. Listening intently, Mercia nods as Razel exposes how the goddess summons and discards champions across every era. As the truth unfolds, Mercia admits the binding contract paralyzes her from striking back against the human realm. Only sheer luck kept Razel alive against forces far beyond his reach, she admitted. The brutal truth laid bare: humanity never summoned Razel to save the realm, but to serve as raw cattle for slaughter. Chilled to the bone by that label, Razel listened as the demon girl calmly confirmed his grim fate. Under the cold moonlight, Razel pressed her for answers, demanding she unravel the madness behind this ritual. Her tale reached 6 centuries into the past, back to the era of the first summoned hero. Left to fight alone, that hero crumbled against the mighty 4 heavenly kings, whose ranks included the parents of Serena and Jack. Humanity fell into despair over repeated failures, pressuring the goddess to summon champion after champion in vain. Did the goddess craft this vile device? Razel asked, and the demon girl nodded without a shred of doubt. Its purpose was monstrous, fusing summoned champions into a single composite vessel strong enough to crush any demon lord. Summoned souls were trained to their absolute peaks, then slaughtered and absorbed to feed power into the combined hero. Generation after generation, the cycle fed the combined hero until that monstrosity grew nearly unstoppable. Everything clicked into place for Razel. His true enemies were never the demons, but that fused hero and the goddess herself. Treating summoned allies as disposable sacrifices crossed every line, and Razel vowed never to lift a finger for the goddess again. To verify her claims, Razel engaged Ericon to sweep the kingdom for undeniable magical evidence. Readouts detected twisted soul signatures within the palace, mangled past human recognition by centuries of forced fusion. Laying out the telemetry with absolute composure, Razel left the demon girl speechless at the sheer depth of his tech. Her initial disbelief gave way as she admitted her warning had pushed Razel to probe the palace defenses himself. Grateful for the vital warning, Razel acknowledged that without her tip, the goddess's trap would have caught him blind. Weighing his next strategic move, Razel plotted how to corner the goddess and force a gateway back to his home world. A bolder plan sparked. Instead of taking a hostage, why not offer the demon girl a chance at direct revenge? Her eyes flared with bitter rage as she recounted how that hero enslaved her kin under centuries of torment. She accepted on the spot, and Razel promised her the training needed to tear down the hero she despised. Laying out his own terms plainly, Razel made it clear he needed overwhelming leverage to force the goddess to send him home. To banish the lingering doubt in her eyes, he bluntly assured her that the combined hero wielded barely a fifth of his power. Her hesitation melted as she realized that under his masterclass, even a brutal grind could yield godlike combat power. Fire returned to her gaze as she reached out, fully committing herself to the hellish training Razel promised. Sealing their pact with a firm handshake, they locked into a grueling regimen with everything on the line. With the pact made, Razel asked where they could unleash high-intensity combat without drawing unwanted eyes. Unfolding a regional map, she pointed toward an ancient coliseum sitting desolate just a few kilometers away. Without wasting a single second, he pulled her close and told her to brace for high-speed transit. Before she could even gasp, their bodies blurred into the night sky, rocketing across the terrain in a flash. Slamming down inside the ancient coliseum, she hit the dirt breathless, staggered by the sheer velocity of his spell. Dizziness gripped her skull as she sat sprawled on the stones, reeling from the instant, physics-defying leap. Struggling to her feet, she eyed his strange contraption until Razel revealed it generated an isolated phantom world. Every blast and strike inside would stay cloaked from the outside world, masking lethal drills as ordinary exercise. Razel signaled the start, and she snapped upright, squaring her shoulders with fierce resolve. Facing him in the center of the ring, she boldly shouted that she would not hold back a single ounce of power. With confident grins exchanged, the simulated match sparked alive inside the phantom world. Narrowing her eyes, she read his posture, calculating counter angles for every possible opening. In the blink of an eye, Razel vanished into thin air, leaving her scrambling to track his mana signature. Dense mana flooded the ring, pointing to advanced camouflage as she braced for an ambush from the blind spot. Catching a ripple in the air, midair, she struck hard, only to eat a harmless magic decoy right to the face. A bouncing sphere smacked her forehead, making her wince and rub the sore spot in frustration. Rely purely on raw physical reflexes. No spellcraft shortcuts allowed, Razel ordered from the shadows. Vowing she would dodge the next strike, she leaned forward, only to take another direct hit a second later. Instead of braking, her instincts sharpened until she intercepted the incoming projectile with her bare palms. Her mind raced with the timing. His pacing felt readable now, though she suspected he was holding back on purpose. Gasping for air, she grasped the core lesson. Raw, destructive force was useless without razor-sharp precision. Arcane glyphs flared across her skin, supercharging mana so violently that Razel watched with genuine wariness. Unleashing a piercing battle cry, she hurled concentrated magic cannons straight at Razel with relentless fury. A colossal shockwave rips through the arena, shrouding the entire battlefield in dense smoke. Stepping through the haze with an exhausted grin, Mercia asks if her raw power finally earned his respect. Webbing fractures crawl across the solid magic barrier, proving her strike actually breached the defense. As the dust settles over the arena, her drained face glows with triumphant pride. Razel inspects the shattered fragments, genuinely impressed by the sheer mana output behind her blow. Her shaky voice claims victory, but Razel only chuckles, eager to test how deep her demonic potential runs. Gasping for breath, she protests the intensity, yet he instantly demands an even harsher trial. Under the midnight sky, Razel erects a fresh barrier and orders her to strike with everything she has. Doubt makes her hesitate, worried her unsealed strength might obliterate the entire surrounding area. A confident grin crosses his face as he assures her that his defense absorbs any impact without limit. Gathering every drop of mana, she steadies her breathing, determined to blow past his expectations. Blinding energy detonates against Razel's shield, yet the smoke clears to reveal him completely untouched. Drifting steam leaves the arena dead silent as both fighters stand locked in stunned stillness. Irritation flashes in her eyes, but his steady gaze holds zero mockery, only sharp analysis. The tension breaks, and Mercia formally introduces herself, requesting his aid to defeat the combined hero. Razel acknowledges her honesty, praising her raw reserves, but pinpointing her sloppy spell structure. Breaking down core principles, he illustrates how precise geometry and compression multiply destructive force. Tactical precision allows clever humans to conquer ancient dragons, favoring intellect over brute strength. Bewilderment clouds her face when he introduces three-dimensional spell formulas capable of infinite scaling. Standard magic relies on flat, single-layer casting, but multi-layered matrices unlock exponential power. Insecurity plagues her thoughts, until she discovers that even Razel endured brutal discipline to master his craft. Pausing the lesson, she questions his motives, wondering why he trains her instead of hunting the hero himself. Genuine gratitude drives his decision, thanking her for speaking the truth and sharing vital intelligence. Stunned disbelief freezes Mercia in place the moment he offers to recruit her into his own world. Before she can formulate an answer, he casually leaves the choice entirely up to her. Mercia questions her own worth, doubtful she can stand against an enemy that rivals Razel. Turning with an assured smile, he confirms her fierce performance already proved she is the ideal candidate. Accepting without hesitation, Mercia surprises Razel with such swift conviction despite her royal status. Grateful for his guidance, she refuses to remain indebted and insists on returning the favor. After a quiet hesitation, she reveals her plea regarding her younger sister's mysterious worsening illness. Razel agrees to help, promising to diagnose the girl even if medical spells fall outside his expertise. Wasting no time, both speed across the moonlit sky toward the demon palace to reach her ailing sister. Cecil sits reading in tranquil silence until a glowing portal rips open the quiet chamber. Panic grips the girl at the intrusion until Mercia steps out alongside a confident stranger. Suspicion flares as Cecil questions the intruder, but Mercia quickly calms her with a warm greeting. Proudly introducing Razel, Mercia highlights his immense power and how easily he bypassed her defenses. Wide-eyed awe washes over Cecil, leaving Mercia slightly flustered under Razel's amused gaze. Softly explaining their visit, Mercia shares her hope that Razel can diagnose and cure the affliction. Overcoming her nervous hesitation, Cecil trusts her sister's judgment and agrees to the examination. Moved by the profound bond between between the sisters, Razel steps forward and prepares his diagnostic magic. Kneeling at eye level, he speaks reassuring words to Cecil as Mercia urges him to be gentle. The diagnosis is immediate: hardened mana veins, an exceedingly rare affliction unknown even to Mercia. Intense focus grips Mercia as Razel explains how the blockage cripples her sister's magical flow. Reassuring both sisters, he reveals that specialized nanovirus capsules can permanently restore mana flow. Handing over the glowing capsule, Razel instructs her to ingest the medicine without delay. Cecil steps in to soothe her sister's anxiety, urging her to place full trust in Razel's expertise. Bolstered by that encouragement, Mercia swallows the capsule, trusting Razel's unorthodox medicine. Tension fills the room as Cecil watches Mercia search for any bodily change, though nothing shifts yet. Confusion surfaces quickly, but Razel clarifies the cure takes days and offers to accelerate the process. Mana flows unhindered through her cleared circuits at last, proving the treatment worked and bringing deep relief. Free from the illness at last, Cecil steadied her breath and gathered mana into her hands. With pinpoint precision, she dismantled the vase before her, reducing it to raw particles. Tears filled her eyes as high-tier magic flowed through her body without a trace of resistance. Razel explained the true scope of his cure, noting that most people suffer from hardened mana veins without knowing it. Mass production could elevate entire armies overnight if the realm chose to deploy it. Back in his old world, Razel had crafted this exact remedy to save impoverished children. Mercia welcomed the breakthrough eagerly, recognizing its power to protect and uplift her people. Gathering the batch, she hurried out to distribute the capsules, leaving Cecil lost in thought. Heavy silence fell over Cecil, dreading the looming distance from the sister who anchored her life. Stepping closer, Razel reassured her, praising not just her raw power, but the peace she brought to everyone. A soft nod followed as Cecil embraced her sister's path, ready to face whatever lay ahead. Resolve hardened in her chest, determined to shoulder the throne's burdens alongside her own duties. Even without governing experience, she owned her shortcomings and stood prepared to learn statecraft. To bridge that gap, Razel presented an artifact capable of instilling expert knowledge through direct simulation. Moments later, Mercia burst back into the room, announcing that every single capsule had been delivered across the domain. Bright and energized, Mercia had no idea she had stepped straight into a crucial new plan. Turning to her, Razel grinned, stating that her royal experience was needed right on cue. Agreement came quickly until panic struck, realizing he meant to extract her personal memories for training. Calmed by his explanation, she relented upon learning the device, merely duplicated skills without harming her mind. Precision took over as Razel calibrated the memory crystal, leaving her awed by his otherworldly technology. Bolstered by their faith, she gave the final word and prepared for the transfer. The recording apparatus engaged the instant the setup locked in, anchoring to her steady focus. Radiant streams of data enveloped her frame, channeling memories straight into the glowing core. Razel confirmed the transfer was complete, instructing Cecil to touch the red core and trigger the simulator. An interface flickered to life, projecting a stylized chibi avatar built from the harvested knowledge. A crisis scenario materialized on screen, prompting Cecil to recall famine archives and lock in a countermeasure. Selecting the second option with cautious hope, she watched the system validate her choice with a gleaming passmark. Cheers broke out as her strategy mirrored historical records, earning nods from veterans who had survived the actual famine. Every simulated trial sharpened her instincts, cementing her vow to apply each lesson to real governance. Smiling proudly, Mercia stood beside Cecil, entrusting the realm's future into her capable hands. Dawn brought the next phase of training, with Razel introducing a trial designed to surpass the greatest heroes. Trusting the unfamiliar training grounds, Cecil stepped forward as Razel unveiled a device known as a magic repeller. The mechanism stripped mana from the surrounding air, rapidly draining internal energy from living targets. Alarm flared in Cecil over the crushing drain, but Razel assured her the suppression remained strictly controlled. Overcoming this stage demanded pure willpower, forcing the caster to maintain mana stability under intense pressure. A lone candle sat before her, turning a simple spark into a grueling test of microscopic mana control. Tension gripped Cecil, yet she locked her stance, determined to keep her mana from scattering into nothingness. The initial spark evaporated instantly, vanishing mid-cast, and leaving her thoroughly bewildered. Swallowing her frustration, she gathered her pride and channeled a sharper pulse of mana Manhwa toward the wick. Spite and sheer determination fueled her focus, pouring every ounce of energy into igniting the tiny wick. Trembling under the strain of continuous failure, she watched her spell scatter into empty air. Razel observed in silence as she sank to her knees, exhausted by mana leaking uncontrollably from her grasp. Defiance cut through her tears, prompting a furious shout as she swore to conquer the suppression. Impressed by her stubborn grit, Razel gave an approving nod and signaled for tea to be brought in. Restlessness gnawed at her thoughts until a soothing hand reached out to steady her racing mind. Overwhelmed by another shattered cast, she clapped both hands over her ears and let out a sharp cry. Reading the room's tension, the maid served fresh tea alongside refreshments to ease the heavy mood. Amidst the quiet pour of tea, Cecil locked her gaze on the unlit wick and focused in utter silence. Out of absolute silence, a luminous ember flared to life as her magic seized firm control. Pure elation washed over her as the steady flame burned bright, marking her first definitive victory. Slumped across the wooden table, Mercia groans in pure exhaustion after wrestling her first flame spell into place. Lively chatter fills the room as the allies praise her breakthrough and debate what harsh training comes next. Under starlit skies, the silent arena hums as dense mana streams from a sealed vessel to answer Mercia's stance. Raw energy churns into a floating sphere between her hands, watched carefully by Razel from the sidelines. A proud smile breaks across her face, confident the stable sphere proves how far she has come. Razel nods in quiet approval, prepared to drag her into the real meat of his curriculum. Lifting one hand, he conjures geometric bands of light that snap into a towering arcane bulwark. This is solid magic, he explains, built through interlocking geometric planes of compressed force. Mercia inspects the glowing partition in awe, sensing the insane density packed beneath its simple face. Stacking individual layers creates a lattice capable of deflecting high-tier siege spells without cracking. Undaunted by the sheer difficulty, Mercia flashes a sharp grin and vows to replicate the barrier immediately. Closing her eyes, she recites her incantation and begins slotting glowing blocks of mana together. Watching closely, Razel tracks her construction step by step, impressed by the clean symmetry taking shape. Surging pride lights up her chest the moment the final keystone locks into place. Before she can celebrate, Razel charges a concussive blast to test the barrier under live fire. The blast detonates against the glowing surface, yet her construct holds firm without a single fracture. Pressing both palms against the smooth surface, she marvels at how easily it swallowed the blow. Lingering doubt creeps in, making her wonder if Razel quietly stabilized the spell for her. To clear her mind, Razel challenges her to reinforce the perimeter by weaving multiple defensive tiers. Channeling pure grit, she snaps the luminous blocks together at double speed until a reinforced wall rises. Dropping to the dirt in exhaustion, she beams as Razel confirms every structural layer meets his standard. Sprawled on the stone floor, she catches her breath and groans at how brutal solid magic training is. Offered a chance to rest, she stubbornly refuses, prioritizing total mastery over personal comfort. Razel smirks at her fierce determination, promising to double the workload tomorrow. After relocating to an open ridge, Razel asks what she truly intended to show him. Overlooking the vast plains below, she gestures toward the parched farmland feeding her entire realm. Because rain never visits these barren fields, past rulers kept the soil alive through exhausting ritual magic. Saturating such massive territory demands colossal mana reserves, explaining why her bloodline holds absolute authority. A knowing look confirms Razel's suspicion that this excursion is far more than a simple sightseeing trip. Unleashing a massive multi-layered rain spell carries severe risks, demanding an expert eye to supervise. Seeing through her shy hesitation, Razel respects the fact she grinds day and night purely to keep her people fed. Stepping forward, Razel asks to examine the core matrix, admitting farming spells are not his primary field. Luminous circles flare beneath Mercia's palms, pulsing with moisture and nutrient-rich life force. Impressed by the intricate design, he offers a few precise adjustments and urges her to cast with full faith. faith. Drawing a deep breath, Mercia projects her mana into the sky, mirroring the precise geometry she drilled for hours. Structure, flow, and balance align flawlessly, earning a nod from Razel at her stunning execution. Gathering her courage, she funnels her remaining energy into the final trigger. Radiant light detonates overhead, coalescing into a brilliant mana sun above the arid fields. Gentle rain cascades across the dry earth, drawing stunned villagers out of their homes in disbelief. Roaring cheers sweep through the valley, as tired relief washes over Mercia's face. Glancing back nervously, she searches Razel's eyes to see if her performance met his expectations. Hearing his genuine praise, the tension leaves her body, and she drops to her knees in overwhelming relief. Tears stream down her cheeks as the crushing weight of weeks of grueling training finally melts away. Razel observes in silence, remembering how she endured every brutal trial without shedding a single tear. Hurriedly wiping her eyes, she grumbles about unfair grain prices and the embarrassment of weeping in public. A quiet sigh escapes him as the harsh reality of their previous food crisis becomes clear. Relief softens her expression into a warm smile, knowing her people can finally feast without begging from outsiders. Below them, farmers dance in the downpour as she laughs triumphantly, ready to break the human trade monopoly. Far away, quiet snow blankets the royal chamber, masking the bitter unease spreading behind its opulent walls. A corrupt nobleman's hands tremble as he unfolds an urgent report, struck with disbelief by its contents. Raji roared in pure disbelief at the ledger, refusing to accept the catastrophic collapse in profits. Terrified officials scrambled for answers across the tense room, but every excuse only fueled royal fury. Outright trade rejection from the demons shattered every hope of regaining economic leverage over their realm. Cold sweat broke out as an advisor recalled how Raji executed ministers over the slightest blunder. Consumed by bitter rage, the royal chamber drafted plans to strike the thriving capital of Mercia. Demanding total submission, Raji insisted on a harsh contract to chain the demons under his economic rule. Hesitant war advisors warned him that the new heroes lacked the strength to face Mercia in combat. A ruthless scheme formed in his mind: bait the demons into slaying the heroes to trigger an all-out war. Blinding arrogance cast caution aside, treating the lives of summoned champions as cheap, expendable pawns. Barked commands echoed through the hall as trembling subordinates bowed and hurried out to escape punishment. Cruel smirks sealed the battle plan once the royal decree was dispatched to set the trap into motion. Raw hatred and greed fueled Raji to bend the entire demon nation to his knee through bloody conquest. Just outside the corridor, an alert warrior caught whispered plots of a bloody march on demon lands. Suspicion drew him closer to the heavy door, dreading what the crown planned against the demon capital. Muffled voices confirmed his darkest fear. Raji intended to sacrifice the heroes to ignite a war. Heavy doubt weighed on his steps as he walked away, trying to convince himself they were not lambs for slaughter. Lingering panic gnawed at his gut over the horrifying truth that Raji saw summoned heroes as sacrificial bait. A forced smile masked his dread, yet the knot of tension in his chest refused to loosen. Fierce winds swept across the barren wastes as Razel and Mercia stepped onto an isolated proving ground. Miles of empty terrain provided the perfect open arena for an uninhibited high-tier duel. Encouraging words from Razel sparked her competitive fire, leaving both eager to unleash everything they had. Eager to prove her strength, Mercia took up her stance as Razel met her gaze with a confident grin. Crackling arcs of mana gathered around Mercia before erupting into a spear of devastating force. Blazing spears surged forward in relentless waves, forcing Razel to raise a serious defense. Invoking solid magic, he met the onslaught, yet her immense pressure strained the geometric barrier. Homing lightning bolts rained down next, but Razel bent their trajectory with magnetic force, leaving Mercia stunned. Slipping through the blast with spatial movement, Razel vanished just as Mercia thought she landed the hit. Glowing mana condensed in the hands of Razel as he stepped forward, praising the fierce assault of Mercia. Heavy mist rolled across the field to blind the battlefield, leaving Mercia disoriented as her senses dulled. Fighting off dizziness, she channeled mana into her palm to replicate the antidote spell learned from Razel. Her sharp recall impressed Razel, yet the swirling aura mutated into something far more dangerous than a cure. Raw, destructive power erupted from the hand of Mercia, morphing the spell into a lethal finishing strike. Razel walked right through the roaring inferno with a calm smile, completely untouched by the blast. Pure shock gripped Mercia, unable to comprehend how he walked out of the blast without raising a shield. Inspecting her magic formula revealed the secret. Razel had rewritten the target coordinates to absolute zero. Red-faced and flustered, she conceded that overcharging such a massive spell without backup was reckless. Catching her breath, she took comfort in knowing no ordinary summoned hero could ever duplicate his technique. Rapid shortcast spells had set the perfect tempo, buying the exact window needed for a finishing blow. Commending her rapid growth, Razel assured Mercia she was more than ready to crush the combined hero. A fierce grin crossed her face as she bumped fists with him, vowing to overpower any threat in their way. Once the sparring ended, she quietly ate her meal, reflecting on how much stronger she had become. Resting on the sunlit rocks, the two shared a casual laugh over how thrilling their joint training had been. Genuine excitement filled her voice as she talked about mastering new spells and shaking off her old doubts. Razel silently admired her unyielding drive, recognizing an ally truly dedicated to keeping every promise. Biting into fresh sandwiches, both laughed at the unexpected culinary masterclass crafted by Sieg. Mercia stretched with satisfied exhaustion and called for a return, prompting Razel to open a transfer gate. Stepping toward the gate, Mercia froze as an eerie rumbling echoed through the ground, putting both on guard. A colossal dragon erupted from the shattered earth, roaring with volcanic fury as dark mana filled the sky. Trembling in horror, Mercia recognized the beast, alarming Razel as he sensed her sudden panic. In shaken words, she warned that this ancient terror was the legendary calamity that erased an empire 10 millennia ago. Ancient civilization was rebuilt upon a single vow: never disturb the slumbering dragon that once nearly destroyed the world. Mercia and Razel stand frozen in place, realizing the catastrophic scale of the beast before them. Unfazed by the towering threat, Razel cracks a joke, irritating Mercia as the dragon's sinister laughter shakes the cavern. Furious at the mortal's mockery, the dragon gathers a torrential surge of magic to obliterate them both. Mercia reacts in an instant, raising an advanced absorption barrier to brace against the cataclysmic blast. Shock ripples through her as the apocalyptic inferno dissipates harmlessly against her translucent shield. Razel calmly points out that her power eclipses the beast, leaving both Mercia and the dragon stunned. Staring down at her trembling hands, she realizes that slaying an ancient dragon is truly within her power. Snorting with disdain, the dragon quotes the primordial pacts that bind all demon kin to serve its awakening. A fierce laugh breaks from Mercia as she declares that ancient pacts end the moment the dragon lies dead. Razel encourages her to hold nothing back, igniting Mercia with boiling battle lust. Driven by raw determination, she charges the colossal monster to secure the future of all demonkin. Blinding mana erupts across the sky as Mercia summons countless radiant spears with unwavering focus. Dozens of light spears rain down with crushing force, wrenching a hideous scream of agony from the beast. Under Mercia's relentless bombardment, violent detonations shatter the ground and overwhelm the monster. Once the thick smoke clears to reveal the dragon collapsed cold, she blinks, shocked the duel ended so fast. Praising her progress, Razel admits her growth surpassed all forecasts, even if the beast proved fragile. With the carcass secured, Mercia outlines her plan to leverage the dead dragon during peace negotiations. Rather than letting prime materials go to waste, they resolve to refine the dragon remains into supreme gear. A clever scheme flashes across Razel's mind, his sly grin instantly drawing Mercia in with curiosity. Refusing to spill the details right away, Razel demands her full cooperation before explaining the trick. Late that night, Mercia presents Cecil with a surprise gift, leaving the younger sister utterly baffled. Forged directly from the ancient dragon's horn, the glowing blade resonates perfectly with her demonic mana. Cecil hesitates to take the scabbard, protesting that such a masterpiece is far too grand for her. Warning that more hostile heroes will arrive, Mercia entrusts Cecil to cut them down in battle. With the blade in hand, Cecil accepts her duty and vows to fight in her sister's place. Razel waves off the praise, clarifying that he took no part in felling the ancient dragon. Turning to Mercia, Cecil watches her sister proudly boast about conquering the legendary beast. Laughter erupts as Razel teases her, reminding the room just how terrified Mercia looked before the duel. Still mesmerized by the blade, Cecil wonders aloud if all the dragon's harvested energy was consumed. Grinning wide, Mercia reveals plenty plenty of dragon meat remains, ordering a grand victory festival for the realm. Palace staff spring into motion at the royal decree, bustling through the halls to arrange a banquet. Citizens pack the demon palace courtyard, sharing endless platters and raising toasts beneath the sun. Feasting on roasted dragon meat brings brief joy, though everyone knows darker clashes loom on the horizon. Far in the shadows, the dormant goddess Risha plots her next move after manipulating humanity for centuries. Aware of the looming crisis, the companions steel their resolve to confront whatever trial comes next. Mercia shoulders the diplomatic burden, already scheming to dominate the human envoy without an ounce of mercy. Uneasy looks pass among the retainers as her bloodthirsty expression leaves everyone dreading peace talks. Sweeping across the banquet tables, Mercia devours dragon delicacies until she can barely move. Back in the lounge, she flops onto the couch with a stuffed stomach, tuning out the amused banter around her. A faint tremor in the mana grid alerts Razel, prompting Mercia and Cecil to spot 3 figures at the gate. Razel confirms the trespassers are no ordinary scouts, but the newly summoned heroes sent from Earth. Outside the gates, the summoned trio arrives in force, demanding the demon lord present herself and surrender. Stepping to the front, the bald warrior bellows toward the walls, demanding the demon lord emerge at once. Demon palace sentries stand their ground, one of them sneering and mocking the bald braggart as an ugly orc. Spurred by the insult, the summoned warrior draws his steel, eager to butcher the guard as a warm-up. Inside the courtyard, Razel, Mercia, and Cecil observe the commotion, readying themselves to intervene. Presumed dead by the human empire, Razel conceals his identity before stepping out into view. Both combatants lunge forward in a flash of lethal aura, their drawn steel screaming through the air. Steel crashes into steel with explosive force, blasting shockwaves across the shattered stone plaza. Dark energy coils upward from the shattered rubble, twisting into a massive, ominous vortex. Mercia steps out from the shadows with cold authority, calling out the intruders for their unlawful attack. Sensing lethal danger, one hero backs away, as his companion warns that any reckless move means certain death. Cecil holds back her retaliation, choosing diplomacy over immediate slaughter. The strategist swallows his doubts and steps forward, asking for a chance to talk down the conflict. Bowing respectfully to Cecil, he offers an apology, insisting they only came seeking answers without bloodshed. Unmoved by their plea, Mercia points out they attacked first, before begging for peace without cause. Then a single phrase shatters the silence, and mentioning the combined hero changes everything. Recognition flashes across his face, confirming those forbidden words carry a far darker secret. Changing tactics on the spot, Cecil triggers a relocation spell before the situation spirals out of control. Danger prickles at the strategist, yet he stays his hand as brilliant mana erupts beneath their feet. A colossal teleportation circle blazes across the floor, leaving the heroes outmaneuvered and trapped. Blinding radiance swallows the room, sealing their defeat before negotiations could even begin. Disbelief freezes the heroes in place as they stand formally welcomed before Mercia inside the demon palace. Cecil steps forward without hesitation, declaring her identity and taking absolute command of the room. Stunned silence grips the trio as they realize she dragged them effortlessly straight into her throne room. Panic breaks through their pride as they plead for the truth behind their summoning and the combined hero. Her answer cuts deep. Combined heroes are human sacrifices, forged into living weapons feared by all demons. Outraged shouts erupt as the heroes demand undeniable proof, refusing to trust a demon without hard evidence. Brushing off their fury, Cecil yields the floor to a figure stepping forward from behind the throne. Calm confidence radiates from the newcomer, sending a shockwave through all 3 summoned heroes. Presumed dead, Razel steps forward and activates a crystal projection of the royal office of King Raji. Cecil watches closely as an unknown figure standing beside the king raises immediate suspicion. Their denial crumbles when combat power readings expose the monstrous strength inside that human form. Reading the displayed numbers, dread spreads. Such power dwarfs anything known from previous summoned heroes. Hopelessness crushes the trio as they realize their true role was always sacrifice, never salvation. Mercia confirms it coldly. Demons are the prey, trapped in an endless cycle of human conquest. Centuries of agony and betrayal burn in her eyes as she delivers her merciless declaration. One hero drops to his knees, abandoning every shred of pride to beg for mercy. Desperate pleas turn into offers of servitude, yet she openly questions their unity and sincerity. Terror fractures the group, driving each man to confess his selfish desire to escape alone. A cold smile touches the face of Cecil as she gives one final order: die for your sins. When a mixed party of humans and demons clashed, corrupt officials labeled the slaughter a tragic accident. Reviewing the grim verdict, the bearded official casually dismisses the bloody outcome as fair punishment. Annoyed by court procedures, he sneers at the endless paperwork and legal responsibilities. Piercing screams echo through the halls as the foundation shakes, leaving him to mistake it for structural failure. Horror turns real as mutilated corpses litter the corridor, shattering his smug composure. Gruesome holes puncture their torsos, confronting him with brutality no official excuse can explain. Choked by dread, he mutters in disbelief that this waking nightmare cannot be real. Just 1 hour earlier, Mercia had ordered her spies into a staged suicide mission to die theatrically. Shocked followers protested the ruthless betrayal, finally understanding they were expendable pawns from the start. Mercia brushed off their outrage with a smirk, delivering words that stung with brutal honesty. A proud laugh escapes Mercia as she savors the confusion on the faces of the summoned heroes. Admitting her lingering grudge, she continues the show as Razel watches how far she pushed things. Frustrated by the twisted explanation, the bald warrior demands clear answers from Mercia. Mercia commends his honesty before yielding the floor to Razel, diffusing the tension. Suspicious of trickery, the heroes question his survival, prompting Razel to explain how he fooled death. Constructing a synthetic decoy body allowed Razel to fake his demise, stunning the entire group. Even after he explains creating the replica corpse himself, nobody trusts his sinister methods. Chaos mounts as one panics over ghosts and another questions reality, baffled by the calm demeanor of Roselle. Unveiling his latest techno-magic device, Razel demonstrated how easily it synthesized an identical flesh clone. Synthetic doubles made the summoned heroes uneasy, but living as copies beat dying on the front lines. Mercia sighed, recognizing that once Razel locked onto an eccentric scheme, no argument could sway him. Deep inside a quiet chamber, artificial flesh matured under steady layers of preservation magic. Flawless yet devoid of breath, the replicas stared back with cold, empty expressions. Disposing of the bodies required total secrecy, and Razel already devised a foolproof scheme. Their plan sent the fake corpses straight to Raji alongside a magically sealed message. Panicked attendants cried out as Raji stirred awake on the throne room floor, dazed and disoriented. Frantic servants explained the palace lockdown, triggered when their monarch collapsed beside fresh corpses. Terror gripped Raji as the ghastly sight flashed through his mind, and he screamed for immediate answers. When advisors identified the corpses as the summoned heroes, Raji assumed Mercia struck back in vengeance. Stepping forward, an attendant presented a strange artifact left behind at the crime scene. Readings from the contraption indicated an impossible long-range teleportation across 20,000 kilometers. Suspicious of forgotten ancient magic, Raji demanded the sealed parchment delivered with the remains. Mercia penned a blistering declaration of independence, tearing up every past treaty and claiming dragon meat. Outraged by the blatant mockery, Raji bellowed in fury, brushing off royal healers begging him to stay calm. Humiliation burned through him as he realized the demon realm struck first, outplaying his entire court. Throwing caution to the wind, Raji ordered an all-out offensive to reduce the demon territory to ash. Advisors hesitated, but Raji silenced all objections by threatening immediate execution for treason. Blinded by wounded pride, Raji swore to obliterate Mercia under overwhelming military might. Raucous laughter echoed through the demon palace, where the conspirators enjoyed every second of the tantrum. Mercia cheered over how perfectly Razel baited the human king, though the others found the trick absurd. No one truly expected Raji to fall so gullibly into every hidden trap wired into the device. Following several botched attempts, Raji pressed the wrong trigger, unleashing a delayed shock trap. Gathered in council, the summoned heroes agreed that cloning was far better than facing forced fusion rituals. A firm knock interrupted their debate as a guard delivered the courier device right on schedule. Handing over the royal reply, the soldier received high praise from Mercia for completing the drop. With the response in hand, Mercia grinned with ruthless satisfaction at their flawless victory. 1 month later, open war erupted, and the kingdom officially deployed the combined hero. Heavy dread settled over the ranks as soldiers braced to face a monstrosity unlike anything seen before. Razel broke the heavy silence, assuring his allies that their swords would not even be needed. Blank stares swept the room, none of the warriors able to fathom what crazy scheme he planned. An overwhelming display of raw might, he argued, would shatter enemy morale before tactics even mattered. Refusing to hide behind anyone, Mercia stepped up to duel the monstrosity in single combat. Gasps filled the hall at her audacious demand to face the abomination completely alone. Iron resolve hardened her gaze as she swore to crush the synthetic champion with her own hands. Perched on the demon palace rooftops under the moonlight, Razel surveyed his chosen killing field. Dozens of surveillance orbs were already deployed across the border to broadcast the clash. Harnessing spatial storage crystals, Razel secured infinite energy to fuel each broadcast node. His ultimate goal came into focus, streaming the duel between Mercia and the combined hero to the world. With cold certainty, Razel promised to drag the puppet master out from the shadows into open view. A cold shiver struck the onlookers, realizing an entity even more terrifying pulled the strings. Relieved by the calm atmosphere, Serena stepped up to assist Razel with his technical setup. Hands trembling with excitement, Serena tested the acoustic receiver and rehearsed her lines. Electrifying excitement surged through the crowd as Serena announced the dawn of liberation. Scanning the sparse arena grounds, Razel noted how confusion and deep-rooted prejudice kept crowds away. Whispers rippled through the spectators, ridiculing the fact that only two figures stood ready. Striding into the arena with arrogant swagger, the lead swordsman sneered directly at Mercia. Lacking all fear, the warrior mocked demon kind and scoffed at the dormant goddess Risha as a myth. Mercia sensed Risha watching from the celestial void, indifferent and unwilling to intervene. Aware the enemy city stood abandoned, Razel feigned ignorance as he quietly set his true plan in motion. Mercia sighed and gave Razel her reluctant approval, well aware nothing could change his mind. Trusting in her strength, he departed into the shadows as she promised the battlefield would be cleared before his return. Mocking her lone presence, the human hero taunted her to call for backup, completely blind to the monstrous power inside her. A low chuckle broke from Mercia, treating the boy's bloated ego as nothing more than an opening joke. Before leaving, Razel called out to the trembling warrior, laying bare how pathetic the enemy had truly been all along. Provoked beyond reason by the taunt, the enraged hero roared that he would butcher them both without any help. Blinded by furious pride, the swordsman charged headlong, convinced he was about to deliver an inescapable execution. Bellowing in triumph, he bragged the demon would hit the dirt in 10 seconds flat. Jagged lightning split the heavens open as Mercia calmly gathered mana to crush his sprint. A blast of divine fury swallowed him whole, leaving the bleeding hero staggering as Mercia mocked his sluggish speed. Forcing a twisted grin through his wounds, the battered champion channeled a lethal spell beneath the dirt. Violent detonations blasted the ground beneath Mercia in a desperate ambush. Her counter was instantaneous, piercing his flank before he could even register the failed strike. Coughing up fresh blood, he reached frantically for recovery magic, yet her follow-up blow struck faster, defying fatal trauma. The hero rose to his feet with flesh restored by hidden high-tier regeneration. Looking down on his renewed vigor, Mercia dismissed the trick, having already decided the battle with raw supremacy. His strength drained in an instant, crashing him to the dirt under her unyielding gaze. Stunned silence gripped the distant observers as allied forces watched their champion collapse in total defeat. Broadcasting the clash live, Serena mocked the fallen warrior, calling his desperate resistance a cheap stage play. Amid resounding cheers, Serena proclaimed the absolute victory of Mercia across every broadcast crystal. Cutting the transmission with a triumphant salute, the elf showered final praise upon the demon ruler. Stepping out from the shadows, Razel regrouped with her, confirming he had monitored the duel after completing his covert mission. When Mercia pressed for details, he casually confessed to plundering the combination device during the chaos. With a sharp smirk, Razel revealed he had already mapped out the internal matrix and unlocked its terrifying potential. Holding up the stolen artifact as undeniable bait, Razel directly called out the goddess Risha. Though Mercia noted the sky remained empty, Razel stayed calm, knowing Risha would inevitably take the lure. Thrilled by the scheme, Mercia urged him to trigger the artifact without delay, and Razel nodded in full readiness. The true objective came to light. Razel intended to run the the combined hero experiment on his own body. Having trusted Mercia to dominate the battlefield alone, Razel had slipped away toward the enemy stronghold. Approaching the fortress walls, he exploited the stripped defenses to slip past the perimeter undetected. Guided by a captured blueprint, Razel pinpointed the vault holding the fabled combination device. No guards barred his path inside, only an eerie silence blanketing the artifact pedestal. Examining the relic closely, Razel marveled at how royal arrogance had left such a weapon completely unguarded. Securing the prize without a single alarm triggered, Razel could not shake the feeling that something was amiss. Probing the inner mechanisms out of curiosity, he uncovered a staggering layer of hidden power. Glancing across the distant horizon, he watched Mercia clean up the final remnants of the enemy force. When she walked over, Razel casually showed off the stolen prize, drawing a stunned yet amused grin from Mercia. Setting fatigue aside, they channeled mana into the stolen relic to force an immediate confrontation with Risha. Silence answered their summons, proving the wary goddess refused to walk blindly into their trap. Unbothered by the divine snub, Mercia proposed activating the combination device right then and there. Taking the initiative, Razel began the procedure to fuse his own mana matrix with the captured summoned hero. Mercia blinked in confusion as he explained the transfer process excluded her entirely from the fusion. Puzzled by his guarded tone, she realized he was shielding her from a deeper, unspoken danger. Razel caught her off guard by frankly admitting that her raw, destructive force already surpassed his own. Given enough time to cultivate her abilities, she had the potential to eclipse everyone in the realm. Reaching out to reassure her, he promised this experiment was meant to bolster her growth, not restrict it. Dropping the final truth, he exposed the sinister psychic link connecting the device straight to Risha. Because the artifact was designed for mind control, Razel insisted only his disciplined psyche could withstand the backlash. Faced with his airtight logic, Mercia reluctantly yielded and gave him her consent. Doubts still lingered as Mercia questioned the safety of the untested device. Pushing past all hesitation, Razel started the experiment, imagining how thrilled Cecil would be. Razel channeled his energy and triggered the artifact, directing its power straight into the dormant goddess. A violent wave of raw power tore through his veins, flooding his senses as the mechanism awakened. Mercia raised her arms against the blinding flare, stepping back as the flash illuminated the room. The blinding glow settled into stillness, proving the process worked without any foreign mind taking control. When excess mana surged across his frame, Razel suppressed it with total internal stability. A confident grin broke across his face as he announced the trial an absolute success with zero side effects. Overwhelmed with shock, Mercia cried out in disbelief, realizing Razel had pulled off the impossible. A lone soldier stepped into view, carrying the unmistakable bearing of an enemy commanding officer. Pure terror struck the soldier the second he recognized the stolen relic out in the open. Choosing intimidation over blood, Razel handed over a scroll demanding human surrender through royal channels. Dread seized the messenger, imagining his execution if he returned to King Raji with such disgraceful terms. Mercia cut off his hesitation with a chilling promise to deliver his severed head to the kingdom instead. Bolting away in sheer terror, the captain remembered their promise to return for his rescue. Back at the imperial camp, his pale and shaken face baffled the soldiers watching from a distance. Glancing back with worry, the captain prayed their help would arrive before it was too late. Mercia hesitated before agreeing to assist, following Razel when he advised delaying teleportation for strategic gains. Keen curiosity drove Razel forward, eager to test new combat tactics powered by his enhanced mana. Pouting in annoyance, Mercia grumbled that Razel received upgrades after she handled the toughest battles. To cheer her up, Razel promised to craft a personal trump card designed just for her. The pair turned back toward home, already picturing their allies preparing a grand celebration in their honor. Stepping through the gates, both of them were surprised to find everyone waiting in silence at the courtyard entrance. A grand welcome awaited them as the entire demon palace assembled to honor their victorious return. Mercia burst into bright laughter with her stress gone, and Razel watched her with quiet satisfaction. Warm embraces quickly followed, celebrating Mercia as she reunited with the demon kin after their victory. From the sidelines, a curious figure watched the group, catching their attention as the celebration grew lively. Servers unveiled a colossal feast, leaving the entire hall in stunned awe as the massive dish took center stage. Joy filled the room as Razel took in the moment, surrounded by allies, warmth, and a well-earned celebration. Standing just off to the side, Razel let Mercia proudly present their victory to the gathered citizens and allies. Later that night, Mercia rested beside Cecil, quietly reflecting on the battle and its outcome. Lifting her palm to the moonlight, she looked back on the moment she secured victory over the combined hero. Even with all her power, she confessed the truth. Fear still lingered, and her body had not stopped trembling. Cecil placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, honoring the courage shown by the hand of a demon lord. From her bed, Mercia pledged to defend their home with her own growing strength. Listening quietly beyond the doorway, Razel made a silent vow to protect their world by her side. Majestic steps carried the demon ruler up the grand staircase as the knights looked on in stunned silence. Stepping into the chamber without hesitation, her heels clicked sharply against the polished marble floor. Out on the balcony, she hushed the restless crowd below with undeniable authority. Her voice rang out, announcing her plan to train with Razel and warning of another looming threat. Though her words inspired the crowd, uneasy glances revealed that many still harbored silent doubts. Cecil stepped forward on command as Mercia turned, entrusting her sister with a vital duty before the public. Before the assembly, Mercia named Cecil as her successor, praising her sharp political strengths without hesitation. Facing the massive crowd, Cecil demanded absolute discipline, promising iron-willed rule until Mercia returned. A fierce glare swept across the gathering, demanding absolute commitment and obedience without hesitation. Mercia quickly urged Cecil to restrain herself, calming the startled and visibly sweating soldiers below. Days later, Razel brought her to the coast, where she questioned the reason behind their training. Without answering directly, Razel signaled her to step back before preparing his self-strengthening spell. Dense mana swirled at the feet of Razel as she watched in silence, surprised by his slow casting pace. A blinding explosion erupted across the water, engulfing the ocean with energy that shattered the silence. A shiver ran through Cecil as the colossal shadow took shape right before her eyes. Towering high above the rolling ocean waves, the mighty beast stole the breath right out of Cecil. Doubt raced through Cecil, wondering if taking dragon form would disrupt Razel in mid-cast. Instead of stopping there, Razel teased a second stage as pure mana swirled around Cecil. Shifting back into human shape, Razel urged Cecil to examine the inner flow of his mana channels. Beneath his mortal skin lay the raw essence of a dragon, perfectly fused into his flesh. Cecil answered his first test with confidence, only for Razel to counter with a far deeper riddle. Pure draconic power carried a fatal flaw. Its massive physical bulk crippled its combat speed. Razel explained that blending mortal agility with draconic armor erased every weakness. Unlocking that power carried a harsh price. Cecil had to slay a true dragon all on her own. When self-doubt crept into her voice, Razel gave her forehead a firm flick to snap her out of it. Brushing off her hesitation, Razel declared that the vast mana within Cecil made her the ideal candidate. Years of isolation had scarred her confidence, yet Razel insisted true power began in the mind. A faint smile touched her lips as Cecil chose to put full trust in his guidance. Fired up by her answer, Razel broke down the secrets of bodily reinforcement with eager enthusiasm. With an enchanted bracelet in hand, Razel promised it would buffer the crushing strain on her veins. Fastening the artifact to her wrist, Cecil resolved to master dragon form whatever the cost. Under the glow of the full moon, grueling training echoed far beyond the walls of the demon palace. Up on the high balcony, Razel monitored incoming mana readings as he waited for Cecil to return. Hurried footsteps clattered down the hall, followed by Cecil eagerly calling out his name. Bursting through the doors with a proud grin, Cecil announced that she had mastered dragon form. When Cecil offered to demonstrate her newfound strength, Razel gladly welcomed the display. The mood sobered as Cecil brought up the combined hero, measuring his aura against her own growth. Razel nodded with calm acceptance, validating the terrifying might she had witnessed on the battlefield. Looking up into the night sky, Razel pointed toward the glowing moon with an unexpected question. Cecil brushed off the joke at first, but his quiet confidence ignited her deepest curiosity. Without waiting to be asked, Razel had already launched a wide-range scan into deep space. High above the world, Ericon adjusted its orbit and directed a sensor probe toward the lunar surface. Deep within a moon crater, the probe located a mysterious tower enveloped in an ancient barrier. Far away across the lands, a solitary figure stood motionless beneath the rustling forest canopy. Eyes closed in silence, the guardian waited, sensing an unfamiliar ripple descending from the heavens. Snapping her eyes open, she felt a sharp metallic pulse pierce through the upper atmosphere. Pacing the balcony, Cecil pressed for answers, eager to see what the probe had uncovered. Static flooded the feed as a deliberate strike severed the connection from across the void. Basking in the moonlight, Razel realized a formidable entity was hiding beyond their known world. Shock froze her expression as she realized his wild hypothesis was grounded in absolute truth. Centuries of lived experience had never shown her a mana signature quite like the lunar source. Pushing away her doubts with a determined shout, she demanded they begin testing at once. Seeing her fierce resolve, Razel smiled and prepared to back her without hesitation. With their sights locked on the lunar tower, they chose its supreme master as their next target. Descending upon the lunar wasteland, Razel and Luna spotted a concealed fortress veiled in ancient magic. Beside the eerie spire, the pair examined the seamless exterior to find an entry point. Before either could strike, an ominous door slid open to reveal a silent, pitch-black corridor. Luna feared a deadly ambush, yet Razel detected no malice lurking within the threshold. Stepping past the gateway, the two ventured forward to uncover the truth waiting inside. An abrupt halt from Razel sent Luna bumping straight into his back in the narrow corridor. Warm air brushed past Luna, carrying the sweet scent of fresh grass across the lunar void. Sprawling green plains unfolded beneath a bright blue sky, centered around a solitary giant tree. Razel saw through the illusion at once, recognizing an artificial realm woven from pure quantum magic. An echoing voice questioned their presence, prompting Razel to answer warily when he sensed no heartbeat. The dragon woman stands tall with cold indifference, dismissing the outside world as unworthy of her time. One glance at her draconic features tells Razel this warrior possesses immense ancient power. Stretching with lazy confidence, the guardian demands straight answers instead of meaningless chatter. Stepping forward boldly, Luna challenges her to a duel so their blades can do the talking. An appreciative laugh rumbles from the dragon, amused by Luna and her fearless challenge. Locking in the duel with a tense nod, Luna watches the draconic aura flare with crushing pressure. Demanding who will strike first, the dragon watches Luna freeze under that overwhelming force. Refusing to back down, Razel and Luna step up together to face the threat as one. All three combatants leap backward in unison, creating distance before the opening clash. A fierce grin spreads across the face of Luna as she promises no mercy, amusing Razel. Blinding bursts of explosive magic erupt from Luna, lighting up the arena in raw, destructive fury. Devastating beams of energy erupt from the mouth of the dragon with pinpoint accuracy. Darting through the smoke unharmed, the dragon slips right behind Luna. Moving with flawless precision, Razel pulls Luna out of danger and raises his defense. Intrigued by such calm focus, the dragon grins at Razel stepping onto the front line. Glowing magical chains conjured by Razel wrap around the arm of the dragon, locking her down. Crushing weight bears down on her limbs, proving this spell is far beyond ordinary binding magic. She thrashes against the restraints, refusing to let simple conjured chains hold her back. A blindside spell from Luna strikes home, freezing the dragon in place with heavy force. Solid magic snaps into place as Razel absorbs her desperate strike with a reinforced barrier. Dense energy surges through the fist of Razel, sparking a strange sense of familiarity within the dragon. Recognizing the technique, she understands that Razel plans to neutralize her power through pure tactical suppression. Spotting an opening in midair, Luna strikes at the exposed weak point before her foe can counter. Caught off guard by the power of Luna, the dragon reels back in a daze from the direct hit. Razel follows through instantly, driving home the decisive blow before she can regain her footing. The two comrades land without a scratch as their exhausted opponent collapses to the ground. Tremors rip through the stone floor, releasing a final burst of energy to seal the defeat. Gasping for air, the fallen guardian concedes defeat, stunned by their overwhelming coordination. Seeing his true caliber, she recognizes his mastery and quietly offers to pass down her knowledge. Turning past Luna, the dying dragon locks eyes with Razel, honoring his peerless skill. Bleeding on the cold ground, the dragon asks for her final wish to be honored. Kneeling beside her in the quiet hall, Razel accepts the weight of her final request. Warm light flows between their palms, transferring the secret skill in a pact of mutual respect. Her final words fade into the air like smoke as life leaves her body. Heavy silence settles over the hall as Luna watches Razel grasp the true weight of the gift. Honoring the warrior with a solemn nod, Razel stands silent as Luna grapples with the harsh reality. Uneasy tension hangs in the air until Luna finally breaks the quiet to voice her distress. Tormented by doubt, she demands to know why Razel chose not to spare the dragon. Stepping in before her anger boils over, Razel promises that the inherited art will make everything clear. A quiet smirk from Razel only fuels the growing suspicion inside Luna. Pure disbelief hits Luna when Razel reveals his resurrection technique can pull souls back from death. Under the shade of a massive tree, Razel begins the resurrection ritual under the watchful gaze of Luna. Extending his hand with absolute confidence, Razel unleashes a surge of radiant mana. Radiant light envelops the fallen dragon, as restorative mana mends every cracked wound. Fatal injuries seal instantly, restoring steady breath and vibrant life to her slumbering body. Opening her eyes with a relaxed stretch, the dragon flashes sharp fangs and praises the power of Razel. Luna eagerly wonders if all the fallen can be saved, but a blunt reply from Razel crushes that dream. Seeking answers, Luna watches Razel calmly prepare tea. Noting this truth requires patience. The brutal condition leaves Luna speechless. The resurrection technique works only on foes Razel slays himself. Sipping hot tea together, Razel clarifies the strict rules and heavy costs required to restore a soul. Razel admits he cannot revive that dragon she once battled, though she recalls the beast was never all that strong. She remembers his earlier trial, defeating a fused hero to unlock the secrets of forbidden resurrection. A flash of shock hits Razel. He never told a single soul about that hidden experiment. Doubt clouds his mind, yet her claim rings clear: that fallen hero might still be brought back. Her logic makes sense, pushing him to weigh an untested outcome he had never dared explore. Fresh inspiration strikes, prompting him to head straight back toward the demon palace. Though she protests his abrupt departure, he waves it off, fully satisfied with the shared insight. Parting promises seal an open invitation between them, welcoming future visits at any time. A bold invitation comes forth, urging him to travel alongside them on their journey. With a grin, he turns it down, choosing his quiet routine over endless battles. Mutual respect guides their farewell as both sides turn toward their chosen paths. A firm handshake confirms their bond, leaving past rivalries behind as true equals. Glimmering magic particles carry the two away, leaving him to smile and step back. Finding solitude under the shade of a tree, he settles in for a well-earned nap. Gentle breezes sweep the hillside in absolute silence, leaving the tranquil ground undisturbed. Back at the demon palace, Mercia stretches her arms, wondering what grand scheme Razel has planned next. Stepping through the portal, Razel brings along a familiar figure that freezes both sisters in disbelief. An elderly horned demon steps forward, greeting their stunned stares with gentle warmth. Recognizing their grandfather, both sisters tremble as sheer shock gives way to overwhelming joy. Tears fill their eyes as the old ruler reaches out, speaking with timeless wisdom meant just for them. Long ago, he taught them that even if one took the throne, they must never allow anything to divide them. Their grandfather offers heartfelt guidance: build trust, lean on allies, and rebuild the realm together. Overcome with emotion, the sisters throw their arms around him, shattering years of bottled-up grief. Warm praise flows from his lips as he marvels at how strong and capable his granddaughters have grown. The truth behind his resurrection comes to light, with Razel standing quietly as the creator of this miracle. Knowing every detail matters, Razel steps up to recount the entire sequence from start to finish. Hearing that Mercia brought down the fused hero leaves their grandfather completely awestruck. By absorbing that fallen power, Razel gained the vital catalyst needed to resurrect their grandfather. Transferring that energy awakened inherited memories, leading the old ruler to mistake Razel for the victor. Curiosity takes over as their grandfather wonders if that same fusion technique could empower his granddaughters. Both sisters instantly protest, complaining it is unfair that only Razel gets to absorb defeat defeated foes. Mercia and Cecil insist the process is safe, arguing that raw strength is reason enough to try. Hesitation holds Razel back, warning that absorbing a hero's essence could corrupt a demon's spiritual core. They brush off his caution with relentless determination, drawing hearty laughter from their grandfather. Under the silver moonlight, Razel finally relents, initiating the long-awaited fusion experiment. Radiant energy bursts forth as the ritual succeeds, leaving Cecil glowing with immense new power. Razel reveals his true motive. He needs their grandfather's guidance to support Cecil through the trials ahead. The old man nods in understanding, knowing court advisors can never replace genuine family support. Beneath Cecil's cheerful smile lies a heavy burden of worry she never shares out loud. A gentle smile crosses the grandfather's face as he gladly accepts the duty to watch over them. Heartfelt gratitude fills the chamber as Razel thanks him, placing the sister's future in loving hands. A sharp clatter echoes from the corridor, pulling Razel and the grandfather's attention toward the doorway. Dressed for diplomacy, the sisters march in with full confidence, ready to negotiate with the humans. Far across the human kingdom, an enraged scream rings out as a fist slams hard into the stone wall. A furious nobleman rants in disbelief, unable to grasp how the demon faction keeps claiming victory after victory. Panic overtakes his fury, his unhinged shouting stunning every advisor in the room. A brilliant portal tears open, blinding light swallowing the royal chamber and paralyzing everyone with dread. Stepping out from the glow, Razel and the sisters confront King Raji face to face. Cecil calmly introduces herself as the demon ruler, presenting an offer for peaceful diplomatic talks. Overwhelmed by their absolute authority, King Raji trembles and nods without offering the slightest protest. Inside the royal chamber, Mercia offered formal thanks for granting the demons an audience. Swallowing his hesitation, the elder human leader forced a polite smile and yielded the floor, concealed beneath an illusion. Razel stood in silence as the humans failed to recognize their banished champion. With calm authority, Mercia announced that the demons were ready to present their non-negotiable terms. Her list demanded treaty annulment, the immediate release of all enslaved demons, and 1 trillion gold coins in reparations. Mercia set down the official documents, detailing every imperial violation alongside their demands. Stunned by the accusations, the corrupt noblemen denied everything, claiming the empire held no captives. Razel tapped the memory crystal, projecting irrefutable records recorded straight from imperial labor camps. The projection displayed chained demon laborers under armed guards, shattering the nobleman's confidence into raw panic. Confronted by sight after sight, the broken official folded under the questioning of Mercia and confessed. Cold sweat poured down the nobleman as he took up his seal to ratify the agreement. From above, a commanding voice thundered through the hall, freezing his hand before ink touched parchment. Blinding radiant light erupted from the ceiling, paralyzing everyone in stunned disbelief. Out of the brilliance stepped Risha, descending upon the room in full divine majesty. Risha commanded Razel to drop his petty illusion and reveal his true face. With a calm smirk, Razel let his disguise dissolve, greeting her presence without a shred of fear. Standing in plain view, his unmistakable face made the noblemen gasp at the return of the exiled hero. The aristocrat cried out in horror, convinced their assassination plot had buried Razel long ago. Cutting through the panic, Risha declared that only one path forward remained for the mortal lord. Broken and terrified, the nobleman dropped to his knees and pressed his stamp into the pact. In a desperate plea for protection, the nobleman begged Razel to rejoin humanity as their allied champion. He offered a frantic bribe of half the reparation gold if Razel convinced Mercia to soften her terms. Razel flatly rejected the bribe, reminding him that true strength, not gold, had always been his ambition. Irritated by mortal squabbling, Risha intervened to take control of the situation personally. She offered Razel a guaranteed ticket back to his original world, tied to a single condition. Her terms were ruthless. Razel had to execute the nobleman on the spot to earn his passage home. Instead of playing her game, Razel produced his own dimensional relic built to cross worlds. Fueling the device required divine power, and Razel intended to absorb Risha to take it. Outraged, Risha sneered that she crafted the original foundational concept with anti-absorption fail-safes. With an easy grin, Razel explained he had already dismantled her crude security matrices long ago. Dread seized the goddess when she realized her defensive wards were completely unresponsive. As divine light began unraveling, Razel coolly remarked how simple it was to rewrite her spells. Thrashing in vain, she confronted the bitter truth of how outmatched her divine crafting really was. When Risha cursed him as wicked, Mercia fired back, mocking the hollow righteousness of a false goddess. Mercia flashed a cold smile, tearing apart the hypocrisy behind the sacred claims of the deity. Tears of helpless fury ran down the cheeks of Risha as her doom became absolute. She frantically begged them to shut down the device, her divine authority entirely gone. With a flick of his fingers, Razel muted her cries, severing her voice and residual magic. The nobleman shuddered in terror, watching the divine body disintegrate into shimmering motes. Activating at full capacity, the artifact completely consumed the remaining essence of Risha. With the process finished, Razel stood quietly, feeling immense divine energy surging through his veins. Fading divine dust slipped through his fingers, proving that even deities crumble before superior artifice. Checking in on his status, he noted that his mana control had sharpened and his body felt weightless, a triumphant smile on her lips. Mercia slid the treaty forward once more for its final seal. Sobbing uncontrollably, the ruined noble whispered his submission and firmly stamped the treaty. Bathed in moonlight, the party made their cheerful journey back toward the demon palace. Welcoming them at the gates, the elder demon eagerly asked for news of the negotiation. Mercia proudly announced their total victory, lifting weeks of heavy tension from the court. The elder gasped in sheer awe upon hearing they had absorbed a goddess and unlocked interdimensional travel. Razel assured everyone that the worlds were now connected, allowing allies to travel freely between them. Hope filled the room once everyone agreed to return all the summoned humans back to Earth. Gathering around the table, the leaders resolved to break the joyful news without delay. Tears of pure relief flowed across the summoned heroes' faces upon learning their exile was over. With heartfelt goodbyes spoken, the group stepped into the glowing portal, leaving the demon palace behind. Once the heroes vanished, Razel and his demonic companion prepared for their own journey. Tight hand clasps and quiet words of gratitude sealed their bond before the final step. Bathed in pale moonlight, the pair strode forward into the unknown beyond the portal. A dimensional rift tore open the sky, letting Razel and the demon slip through in total silence. Razel surveyed the barren horizon, feeling long-buried memories stir within his chest. Scorched craters, rising smoke, and a solitary peak were all that remained of his childhood home. Her cold voice confirmed the awful truth. His entire hometown had melted into volcanic slag. Decades ago, a catastrophic failure of quantum magic had irreversibly warped the entire landscape. To fix the disaster, Razel unveiled quantum magic, a revolutionary tier far beyond ordinary spell arrays. Channeling the divine strength of goddess Risha, he synchronized the matrix with the local mana fields. Radiant light washed over the wasteland, softening cracked earth and coaxing fresh greenery to life. Stunned by the sweeping terraforming, the demon girl demanded to know how his multi-layered spell worked. Overwhelmed by the dense theory, she stopped overthinking and simply accepted the miracle before her. Even without comprehending the formula, she felt the sheer, terrifying depth of his arcane power. Shifting the conversation, Razel pressed for her goal, prompting her to target the world's apex monsters. Slaying all 9 supreme monsters would allow Razel to absorb their powers and attain unmatched supremacy. Ancient records placed the first beast at the bottom of a perilous ruin, buried beneath countless floors. Impassable spatial barriers blocked normal teleportation, yet Goddess Risha's authority offered a bypass. Risha had previously dropped hints that her descent coordinates aligned with the world's apex entity. Recognizing the clue's true value, Razel took a moment to ask for his companion's real name. Seeking answers about her origin, he proposed traveling to the God-created dimension, puzzling her. Stepping into the God-created dimension, they found a vast, surreal void shaped entirely by Risha's will. Across the empty expanse, Razel spotted a solitary artifact resting in the far distance. Drawing closer, they found a strange console embedded with a stone pulsing with divine energy. Rather than synthesizing bodies, the machine served to isolate a piece of Risha's teleportation power. The terminal flared to life, reacting instantly to the divine spark stored inside Razel's vessel. Glowing tracking coordinates matched the exact landing zone where he had first arrived in this realm. A second set of coordinates projected a foreboding cavern mouth shrouded in pitch-black shadow. Data confirmed the supreme monster lurked in the deepest abyss, stunning his companion into silence. Spatial analysis proved Risha's authority could bypass natural wards straight to that forbidden floor. Sensing her obvious unease near the console, Razel asked what was troubling her. Though Risha had lost control, the girl believed Razel's rare talent could master the divided powers. Reversing the extraction process would allow the device to fuse the divine energy directly into him. Confident in the theory, Razel triggered the mechanism without a single heartbeat of hesitation. Raw, divine power flooded into Razel's chest, radiating brilliant waves of light across the platform. With the integration complete, he checked the interface just as she eagerly demanded an update. The display locked onto the dark cavern, prompting her cheers as Razel calmly verified energy stability. Armed with active warp coordinates, the two readied their weapons to hunt the dungeon's first boss. Dropping into the dungeon's outer perimeter, they avoided the deadly trap network at the center. Crushing spiritual pressure slammed into them, freezing both fighters as something colossal stirred. Parting the black mist, a hulking silhouette emerged, its eyes gleaming with predatory hunger. Gazing upward at the grotesque skeletal giant, Razel confirmed it as their first supreme target. Detecting an odd anomaly, Razel paused, but the demon girl lunged forward to test the beast's power. In a burst of speed, she unleashed a concentrated spell blast straight into the creature's chest. The spell detonated against the monster's skull, sending shockwaves through its shattered barrier. Rebounding from the violent explosion, the beast slammed into the cavern wall with bone-crushing force. Stepping closer to the fallen beast, she stared in disbelief that a single blow brought it down. An eerie quiet hung over the chamber, fueling the doubt that such a monster fell so effortlessly. A sharp twitch from the creature's severed limb broke the stillness, proving the fight was far from over. Thick slime surged over the carcass from below, knitting flesh into a brand new shape. Rising into the air, a tiny, harmless-looking entity hovered before them, leaving her skeptical of its power. Bone reformed in seconds as the skull reassembled, exposing the creature's innate resurrection ability. Moving to the front before the beast struck, Razel calmly took charge of the counterattack. Rather than smashing the flesh, his targeted memory erasure spell dismantled the monster's structural identity. Once the blast faded, the abomination collapsed into formless sludge, though Razel confirmed its core still survived. Closer examination proved this guardian was nothing more than a decoy planted at the dungeon depths. With the false aura exposed, she pressed for the true location of the supreme entity. Seeking answers, Razel launched a full system scan across the dungeon's inner architecture. Deep alarm crossed his face as the diagnostic readout revealed something profoundly unsettling. Dungeon records showed external tampering, its core systems rewritten by an unknown foreign power. Someone had completely erased the authentic final boss and substituted a counterfeit puppet. Altering such code is only possible from the deepest floor of the abyss, Razel pointed out. Both pondered whether an intruder had slain the real Titan or bypassed combat entirely through code manipulation. The culprit clearly aimed to hoard power, blocking anyone else from claiming the supreme entity's strength. Suspecting treachery from his initial summoning, Razel knew no ordinary mortal could have vanquished that beast. When she suggested rewriting the data back, he conceded that restoring the lost baseline was impossible. Without the original genetic blueprint, reconstructing the true supreme entity inside the dungeon proved out of reach. Left with no other lead, Razel resolved to track down the second supreme entity in its own lair. Their journey brought them to a quiet outpost town, built right beside the next dungeon entrance. Instead of hiding in wilderness, this subterranean labyrinth operated directly under the town's guild. Bleak streets greeted their arrival, filled with sickly residents huddled behind locked doors. A commotion erupted ahead as several unruly adventurers cornered a defenseless girl in the street. Angered by the injustice, Razel advanced silently as his companion braced to strike. Her aura turned lethal in an instant, commanding the brute to let the girl go immediately. When the thug sneered at her warning, she hammered him down with overwhelming force and iron discipline. The cowardly harassers muttered frantic apologies and scrambled into the alleyways. Bowing low in gratitude, the rescued girl thanked her saviors, marveled by their extraordinary power. A calm greeting from Razel followed, asking who she was and why she wandered unattended. Introducing herself as the town Towns Guild receptionist, she praised the miracle of their timely arrival. The party followed her toward the Towns Guild, ready to launch their inquiry. Once inside the Towns Guild, she offered a formal bow of appreciation for saving her life. Lawless mercenaries had flooded the settlement without warning, shattering local peace for mysterious reasons. Direct consultation with the guildmaster was what Razel requested next to uncover the root of the chaos. Private audiences with the guildmaster required at least an A-rank plate, the hesitant receptionist explained. When asked for credentials, Razel froze upon realizing he lacked an active registration card. An awkward admission slipped out, as Razel confessed he misplaced his card ages ago. His companion gripped her hair in panic at the roadblock, prompting Razel to offer a sheepish apology. Taking pity on them, the receptionist offered to look up his record manually through the master archives. A subtle wink signaled that this unauthorized search served as personal payback for her rescue. Grateful for the lifeline, Razel provided his full name to begin the search. Shock rippled across the counter when the ledger classified Razel as an elite S-rank adventurer. Demanding to know what past deeds earned that rank, his companion watched the receptionist bolt into the back offices. Matching portraits in the central archive confirmed his identity beyond any shadow of doubt. Returning moments later, the breathless girl announced the guildmaster granted them an immediate private audience. Total solemnity replaced her casual demeanor as she guided the pair toward the executive chamber. Hot tea arrived during the wait, signaling that the guildmaster handled business with strict formality. Word of Razel's feats had spread far across the realm, earning him renown in every frontier town. Rushing into the room, the guildmaster bowed in frantic apology after recognizing the famous mage. A polite request for dungeon access caught the guildmaster off guard, prompting urgent questions. Heavy silence filled the air as the guildmaster hesitated, instantly setting the two travelers on guard. The guildmaster confessed the grim truth. A brutal syndicate had seized full control of the depths. Local thugs prowling the streets answered directly to the heavily armed invaders underground. Sensing foul play, his companion demanded a full breakdown of the criminal group's operations. Escaped convicts, rogue knights, and disgraced adventurers made up the core of this armed syndicate. Battle-hardened outlaws easily outmatched the local guard, leaving standard guild forces helpless. Crippled by political red tape and low supplies, the Towns Guild had no way to reclaim the site. Her bold declaration to wipe out the entire syndicate in one sweep stunned the anxious guildmaster. Territorial laws meant nothing when innocent lives were on the line and peace had to be restored. Razel asked for official confirmation that slaying the second supreme entity counted toward clearance. Overwhelmed with gratitude and relief, the guildmaster immediately approved their descent. Guild staff stared in disbelief when a massive supply crate was hauled into the lobby. Firm footsteps echoed down the hall as the pair headed out, promising swift victory. Hopeful cheers and quiet prayers followed them as the guild employees watched the duo march away. Deep within the entrance, an unnaturally hollowed cavern stretched far wider than original records showed. Exchanging a silent nod in the dark, the two readied their weapons for imminent combat. Crushing pressure choked the air, far more sinister than any guardian they had faced before. Emerging through thick mist, a grotesque creature flashed a twisted grin and beckoned them forward.